This is Coop's dad, and this is personal to me. Anyway, hey, we're here.
Yeah, it took a while to get teed up.
I know, but if, I was like, the filming probably can see some of the rain. Is that correct?
A little bit.
Yeah. Let's for our viewers out there. Let's see. This is a Coop's Advice podcast. I think we're at number 11. Number 11.
Nice.
And second season going into 2024. And we're here at the LightHouse Recovery and Treatment Center with the president and COO, Peter Davidson.
That's right.
We've known each other, I would say, casually for several years. Probably sports, and then a little real estate. Well, I got involved with you and your family.
That's right.
And then, we became friends and chat and see each other. We're neighbors. You have the Lighthouse Center here, and I know we go way back, but I didn't know you were involved with this until you reached out to me recently. And how did you end up, what's Peter's story? First of all, ladies, he is a single guy. I believe he's available, and he's a handsome,
open for offers, not up for grabs, but open for offers.
He's physically fit. This guy is cut, ripped.
That's right.
And excellent, basically professional tennis player. But Peter, share with us who you are. You have a story, I believe, that maybe led you into this business, and tell us about it. And I'm coming from the standpoint of is that why you and I connected, and we're now entering affiliation with recovery through our son's passing, which we're very thankful and blessed about. But there's a story that I think you should share about who you are, how you got here.
I think it's curious how you sort of got into the recovery world through your son, which was would put you in, and you have a good platform that you're utilizing. My recovery story is sort of I got sober when I was 26, and there was just sort of a beat down before that. And before that, it was just I was a heavy partier was my idea, and it's curious how it got from there to the Lighthouse Treatment Center. When I'm 60 years old, and we've got this.
Wait, you're 60?
I'm 60.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
I thought you were in your maybe 47, 48.
No,
you look great.
Yeah, sobriety's good.
Yes.
Sobriety's good, and the volleyball's good. Harold has always been a great volleyball player, and we've had this connection for all this time, with the six man and just the Emerald Bay connection, which is, I was born and raised there, so I always had this, goal to live back there, and I've sort of accomplished it, which is a heavy thing for me, and
it's a great place to live.
Yeah, it's a great place to live, and so I'm grateful for that. The sobriety thing, there's the whole thing with Alcoholics Anonymous. You keep it anonymous, and that's sort of an odd conundrum. It's the joke is it's one of the fastest growing movements in the world that nobody wants to join and nobody will admit to in public.
Right.
And that's sort of a curious thing being in this industry. And there's, on the one hand, you want to keep it anonymous. On the other hand, it's a valuable message, and it's worth telling people.
Well, it helps to save other people.
Yeah, it's tricky to get that out there in the correct way. And when I'm interacting with people in the community, it's not something you put out there. We started this business in 2002. My father and I joined Tim Salyer, who's a friend of Harold's from way back, and he had started a business, and he had figured a way. We contracted with the state of California, and it wasn't really the recovery world. It was more 6 months of treatment through the Department of Corrections, and then there was a budget issue, and it turned into this, this business that we're running now.
Right.
And there's a big value on, doing scholarships and all the things that we're talking about.
But you said you got sober at 27. So I don't.
26, but who's counting?
Yeah. I knew you and got introduced to you, I think, later in your life. I think you might have been like in your 30s or something.
Yeah.
When I started kind of learning how to play tennis as a middle-aged guy, you guys used to have this evening tennis like battle once a week.
Yeah. All the guys would put in $10 and the winner would take the money. And
right.
Yeah, that was a good thing down at eBay.
Right. But you're alluding to that you had a party life up to the point you got sober.
Do you want me to sort of
expand on that? I'm kind of curious what when you say everybody has a recovery story, but what are they recovering from? What's kind of like what did they go through? What was your experience?
I'll go into a little detail. So I was a big pot smoker. I really enjoyed that, and I would drink, and then a lot of cocaine, and then staying up late, and I just thought I was sort of a heavy partier. And I remember going to Oregon State. I didn't know what to do out of college or out of high school, and I just wanted to get away. So I lived in Oregon, and then I'd broken my wrist skateboarding, and I got the cast off, and I go, maybe I'll try to walk on it at Arizona.
For tennis?
For tennis.
Yeah.
So I transferred to Arizona, and then I had these two fraternity brothers at Oregon State from Lima. From Peru, and
getting deep.
I moved to Tucson, but then I talked my dad into buying a plane ticket to Lima over Christmas in 1982, and it went down there, and I remember huge waves in Lima,
right?
And there's a place called Señoritas and Caballeros, and this huge left, and I was using it, and so I caught one of the big. Anyway, there's the best cocaine in the world, and geez. I remember one of the highlights was Casablanca. There's a bar, New Year's Eve, and I remember wearing this white shirt with, they had the colored lights, drinking whiskey on the rocks, the best blow in the world, and I'd sort of arrived. But I remember mailing a bunch of coke back to Tucson.
Wow.
And,
it actually got there.
And it made it.
It made it.
It made it, and I was like, My dad would always pressure me to get a job,
Wow.
And I was like, a little cottage industry. I, bought a new surfboard and some skis, and it was like, okay, game on. So I was sort of involved in that activity out in Tucson.
Living a good life. Having fun.
Well, sort of having fun. I didn't think much about it. It wasn't that bad. I thought it was something I did, and it gets strange after a while.
Well, a lot of people do this.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a way to make a living.
But I think a lot of people party with more than just drugs and pot and alcohol. They party. And back then, this was what years? In the 80s?
82, 83, 84.
Yeah. I think people died back then from just too much.
Yeah,
right?
Well, it wasn't the nasty results of fentanyl.
No.
If there's this white stuff and there's, you could maybe get some meth. There's heroin, but heroin wasn't as prevalent in those days for me. It wasn't around. And that was... I'd had a habit of going to class. So I would show up for class, and a lot of the guys that I was running with sort of transferred around, and, I did get my degree. It was tricky. It was tricky.
Good for you.
It was a lot of fun. But then there's a lot of, close calls, like almost police activity, I don't know how much detail I need to get into the police stuff.
I kind of understand.
Yeah.
What about anything where you might have jeopardized your health or put yourself in any kind of physical danger?
Oh, well, driving too fast.
Driving under
accidents.
Driving under the influence.
Yeah, we would go hiking in the mountains in the middle of the night on mushrooms and just like a full moon and just like become a Spider-Man, and like we got into it was steep, and what was I thinking, but you're crazy and going for it. And Tucson, you have to get very creative on what to do.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We'd ride a lot of bikes, a lot of dirt bike riding out there.
But never any close to overdosing or...
No overdosing. I remember, when I was 16, I remember on shrooms I had an overdose, but it wasn't nothing as serious, nothing that took a Narcan.
Right.
It was all sort of, just heavy partier and then pulling it back, heavy partier. I think that happens a lot to people, not the heroin, not the fentanyl guys but I think,
Well, you see it with alcoholics. They drink a lot,
That's
they drink a
right.
lot, and then they like hit the brakes because they're either too hungover or they're sick or they've gained too much weight, and they kind of try to reel it in, but then they go back.
Yeah, the toughest ones, Harold, coming in here are the ones that drink like 20 beers a day and go to work, and they are just like functioning but holding on and angry, and that's why a detox from alcohol can kill you.
Yes, understand.
Whereas some of the insurance companies don't cover the heroin over detoxes because it won't kill you. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Blue Cross, that's we won't go down the insurance rabbit hole.
Right.
It'll stay. So I finished school. I did I talked my dad into helping. I did a 6-month trip through Southeast Asia, and that was a crazy, thing. And I almost got in trouble, but I pulled it up. It was like Philippines. I went with Philip McManus.
Yes, I know Billy Bones.
Yeah, Billy Bones, Philip, and this other lady. And
in fact, he actually got married to a gal from the Philippines.
He did.
They've been married forever.
He's got land and kids, and she babysat my kids, one of her kids. So he's all good for him.
Right.
And he's
a good man.
He was able to live really cheap.
Yeah.
Not my style.
He had a skill set to be able to do that.
He did. So let's see, Philippines, Thailand, Sri Lanka, back to Thailand, down through Thailand, Sumatra, then through Bali. Wow. Long time in Bali, and then back and partying. And I remember coming back from that, and I was just, I had to take another class to get my degree. I had to
one and done?
Oh, I had to scramble. It was not a clean, and that was when the start of hitting a bottom where you sort of wonder, I had a lot of suicidal ideation. I had a little garage I was going to keep the car running in and just
Did
sort
you
of
really?
finish. Yeah, that was sort of I kept thinking about why do you keep thinking you want to take your life?
Why did it get to that point? What was it about how you felt that took you to that point of darkness?
I think there's a hope factor. In AA they say share your experience, strength, and hope. And the guys that are coming in, when you hit a bottom, if you lose all hope of any future, if you don't think there's any way, I had these aspirations and I didn't have any way to make.
But you just kind of need to get your act together.
Yeah, well, that's sort of what happened. I remember one time I had been busted in Canada. I was going to go ski the Bugaboos, and I had got possession of cocaine and marijuana in the airport. I was like, what the?
So what happens then? You go to jail?
So it's so funny. They took my airplane ticket. They let me come back on Wednesday. So I came back, and I thought I was going to jail for possession of. And then there was, I think that what happened, they go, another surfer from California, we don't want to throw him in jail in Canada. And there was a $500 fine. And they let me go.
You. Just get out of here.
Yeah, get out of here.
Wow.
I was
lucky.
scared to death.
Yeah, you could be there for years.
Yeah, and there was some situations in Arizona that. So anyway, I came back, and we're a tennis family.
Yes.
And so in 1989, my dad paid for us to go to see Wimbledon. Rick Leach was playing in Wimbledon.
Right.
And we went over there, and I took an 8-ball of cocaine in my underwear, and we had gone shopping that morning in Harrods, and I remember, I was on it, and we were coming back on the subway, and London's a crowded, busy place.
Yes.
It's a tough spot, and we were leaving the subway, and someone stabbed my girlfriend. I brought this girl over there.
Just randomly?
Randomly, like you ever see, the Middle East, they stab them in the ass. It's like that movie Midnight Express.
Yeah.
Remember and it was just sort of an insult. 15 stitches.
An insult to like an American guy.
Yeah, to American. They heard us talking with the accent in the subway, and looking back, I felt really bad about that. I was holding her hand. I was in front, and then the subway doors closed.
Wow.
And then that's when some more shit hit the fan. Like it came out, brought that over. You know, I had a DUI before, you know, and I had pulled so many times you could talk your way out. You know, I could maintain. I could always sort of maintain and talk, you know. And I had an intervention with my mom and my sister. I remember I came back. One of my dad's partners had been sober a long time, and he.
So your family started to figure out that you were going down a wrong road. This was getting really serious.
Yeah.
They're worried about you. They intervened.
Yeah.
What did your dad say about all this?
Oh, you know, he's grateful that it stuck.
Yeah.
You know, at Hoag, they had a really good family week. That's one of the biggest things in any rehab. Hopefully they get the family involved. And
so they got you to go to rehab.
Yeah. I was like 30 days. I was having, you know, trouble making a living. I just couldn't, you know, you just get depressed.
You're talking about the lack of hope.
Yeah.
That gets you to the suicidal thoughts.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, if you can trigger some hope in any of the new people you talk to, any of the, you know, any of the folks that are listening or thinking about what's going on, there's hope. If you, and all the nice thing was, the plan was just take something away, just stop doing something, and maybe things will get better. And they say in AA, give it a year. And if you don't like it, we'll kindly refund your misery. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's the joke. So the goal is for anybody who's new, try this for a year, and then if you want to start drinking again, try it. You know.
But would you agree that there's always hope? It's a matter if we can see it in those dark times.
Yeah, people lose.
But there's always
hope.
They
can't see it. There is.
I mean, I think anything's better than taking your life.
Yeah. And the curious thing is almost anybody could run your life better than you at that point in time.
Right.
And that was sort of a trigger. It happened when I was 26, and you know, I bought into it, and I stayed a year. And you know, the thing that's funny, we know each other but you don't lead with that.
No.
And you don't talk about it, but it was one of the biggest things that ever happened to me.
Well, it changed your life.
Yeah.
You're here today because of that.
It's 34 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't be here.
No.
I mean, look at today's landscape. You would not be here if it was today. No. You'd be dead. The landscape has changed so much today that the odds are so against you that you're going to die from being poisoned. We didn't have that back then. So you were basically, you know, spiraling yourself down with self-abuse to the point of either you eventually are going to die from putting yourself in a bad situation, you know, like in a car or
driving fast,
or bad people, you
That's
know,
right.
or you're going to trash your body that it gives out. You know, like Coke blows up your heart eventually. It takes years off your life, you know, it will. Or you take your life because you feel that this. Like, I know what the hopelessness feeling feels like. I went through a period of suicidal thoughts about 7 months, 8 months after Cooper died. The grief hit, and it just hit like a ton of bricks. And I just thought, you know, all the things, the guilt, the shame,
anxiety.
You don't see a reason to live. That's the thought that comes out. There's nothing... It'll be better if I wasn't here because then I will never feel this way again because I can't deal with it.
Yeah.
And you get to a point where you have enough, maybe because I'm older, there's some maturity or life experience that says enough rational thought that no, there are things that would be better than this, and it's worth hanging on. Or people intervene and say things that are meaningful. And unlike what happened with your intervention, events happen that change and then you shift gears and you put one foot in front of the other. And it's like, okay, I did it for now. Let me see if I can do it another step.
Yeah.
And
one day at a time or 10 minutes at a time.
But it's true. I mean, I remember lying in bed in the mornings when it would hit me the most. And it's like, nah, today's the day, you know, because I can't see going on another minute. But I made it another minute. And then I made it to the bathroom. And then I made it to brush my teeth. I'm like, okay. Oh, then the phone rang. I talked to somebody. Okay, I need to go do that. I did things.
Or get something to eat.
Yeah, something got me going to the point where then I found the biggest thing was I could talk to people about it. And the more I could talk about it, the more I felt that I could get my mind through the fog to some daylight, right? Kind of like the experience I had driving here today in pouring rain. I mean, hydroplaning and 30 miles an hour on the freeway, fog building up and the wipers going. It's like, you're trying to see. And you're really hyper-focused now because you need to concentrate or you're going to get killed out here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. You got to get out of the fog. I call it the fog of grief, which it can be deadly.
Oh, that interaction, if you could find somebody to talk to about it in the grief or on the recovery world, or, there's that, they call it paradoxes of AA, is like giving it away to keep it and surrendering to win. Those type, and the grief is a strange thing. When my mom died, it sort of came in an odd, and it's hard, unless you've experienced it, it's hard to know what's coming, is it?
No.
And your child is a heavy.
We still have
right?
Friends of my son's that are still struggling really hard with the grief because he was very close to a lot of them. Mm-hmm. We find that the impact he's had on a lot of people was really deep and really connected. It's real hard for them because it was so meaningful, and they're also young. They haven't been around more than 21, 22 years. So there's not a lot of a life experience by that time. Meaningful, like mature from responsibility and goal accomplishment, like that kind of life experience.
Yeah. And how do you turn it into a positive? How do you twist it so it's can affect people's future?
When we see the feedback we get from people watching this and listening to this or seeing us interact with other people, I get the feedback from other kids and other adults like, I'm going through that, or I've gone through that. And they see you being open with it, and it has an effect that it's okay to talk about this. Like, remember you said you don't lead with it, and we've never talked about this. I didn't know this about you, but, it makes it okay for somebody else to talk about it. You're not alone.
Yeah.
And there's hope.
Yeah.
It breeds hope. It really does breed hope.
That's one of the trips with AA and the meetings, because you go to these places and you talk about your perception might be totally different from what is actually happening, but you have an ability to get the hope, and that's why I sort of bought into the recovery world. And it was way before this. I was 15 years sober before.
Well, you went into Hogue and you stayed there, and then did you fall back at all? Because it seems to me that in recovery, it's a long road.
It's tricky. It's okay. So one time I was going surfing with a buddy from high school. I won't tell you his name. He's a South Laguna guy, and the boards were in the side of the car because we didn't have racks. And we were driving, and it was sort of a small day, and we went to Salt Creek Flat, Trestles Flat. So we'll go to Oceanside. We're driving, and he lights up a joint, and he passes it up to me, and I'm driving. I see this joint, and I take a little puff, but I didn't inhale. And I had 3 long months.
Okay, Mr. Clinton.
3 long months, and it was like forever, And I called my sponsor, and I go, God, I didn't inhale, and it was around Clinton, and my sponsor goes, I was at a party once. And
you really didn't inhale? Did it and you go, wait, stop?
I felt so guilty.
You stopped and just blew it out?
I felt so guilty. And we ended up paddling out at Oceanside, and my mind was just all whacked out. I just had a terrible time. And I remember I called my sponsor, and he goes, I was at a party, and I picked up a drink, and I really didn't know there was alcohol in it. So, I didn't change my sobriety date. So I went to my mind, I go, God, maybe I won't change I didn't. And then 2 years later, this thing came up in my mind. I was like, God, and I changed it. I would change it from July to September. And that was the only time I changed my sobriety date.
And you've never gone back and done anything?
no. That there was, to be in that place where you want to kill yourself it's hell. All right. So that's the thing with most, if you're new, you've been through hell, and hell could be where your child dies and you have anxiety. It doesn't. I like that line. I drank beer when I wasn't drinking. But there's all different ways to get that anxiety. But I'm never going back. It's because the anxiety was also a financial anxiety. There was no way I was going to ever make enough money. There was no way that I would ever have a family. There was no way I could get her. And it was just this dead zone. So
where it ends up.
Yeah. And there's so much evidence with others that have gone out. Now there's other people, let's just be clear, that can go out and have a few drinks, and the story is my hat's off to them, right? So but their life has gotten better. If they've been through AA and maybe they go drink, but they don't become an alcoholic and get DUIs and kill. So there's a certain segment, and you have to acknowledge. More power to you.
It's not black and white.
Yeah.
Right. I can see that. I've seen that with people.
Yeah, you got to be careful not to become this, like, that, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right?
It's almost like an obsession.
Yeah. But for me, I've found such a value. It's been an incredible value for this 34 years. And I have no intention of stopping. There's the whole higher power thing. I like that they call alcohol spirits. Anytime you're getting drunk, you're getting a spiritual buzz. If you're taking fentanyl, okay, you're getting a spiritual buzz. Whatever the hell you want to take, if you're sniffing glue, it's a spiritual buzz. If you're obsessed with any of the other, compulsive behaviors, what hole are you trying to fill, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's really what it is.
It is.
Yeah.
And
that's what we've seen, and that's what our son went through. Cooper went through struggling about who he is.
Well, he became a really big star.
He did.
What was going on?
But he struggled from a young kid with the things I think every kid struggles with. To some degree. I call it, when I was growing up, I struggled what I called an identity crisis. My self-identity. Who I was, who I am, how do I fit in? Am I likable with girls? Am I fit in with the guys with sports and socially? And, am I going to be the only guy that's not going to get asked to go to the dance that the girls asked? I think it was Sadie Hawkins.
Sadie Hawkins, yeah.
Right? And Cooper went through a lot of the things that I went through. He grew up, he got my height. He was short growing up. He got picked on for being short. I got picked on for being short. I was completely shocked, him growing up in Laguna Beach in a somewhat affluent area, going to a private school, that he would get picked on for being half Mexican and half breed, you little fucking Mexican, things like that. We found out later that he, I guess the diagnosis was ADHD.
Yeah, that's an easy one to put out there.
And you just, can't sit still and, fidgets in class. And some of the teachers like, what's wrong with her? Why can't you just sit there and do it? As opposed to a different approach, which that's really harmful for someone who's growing up. And like, what's wrong with me? That's kind of what he would say. What's wrong with me? And why does my brain not work like everybody else's?
He would say that to you?
Yeah. And we would sit there and go, in what way do you think it doesn't work like everybody else's?
Try to talk through it?
Yeah. I wanted to understand where he was coming from. And he had a hard time articulating.
It's hard to get that deep when you're young.
When you're like 7 and 8 and 9, and you're a little kid in class, you got to sit in the front of the class now. You're embarrassed. Hey, Cooper, come up to the front of the class. You're sitting up here. I mean, all these things you go through have, are like, cuts by, death by 1,000 cuts, paper cuts, right? And we learned when he was in high school that he was extremely smart and bright, and he just couldn't fit in the box. he was bored. It didn't work for him, and we found that his gifts were like in science and math, and there was no, he didn't see any reason for it. Nothing was applicable to him, so he didn't care about it until he got later on and started making money and realized, oh, I get math now about money, what I can invest it in, what I can do with it.
Yeah, interested.
Yeah, and and leveraging it, and but he went through that, and you end up having a hole, and like you talked about, and you want to. I just think kids end up with one of two things. They don't want to feel this way, so they want something. They'll do something, take something, or get involved with something, so they don't have to feel it.
Yeah, take the edge off.
Yeah, and whether it's drinking or drugs, or maybe they become. What do you call it? Extreme sports.
Yeah,
because
jumping off cliffs or putting those capes on and flying.
It's like the guys that were doing
surfing huge waves.
Yeah, and the guys that were doing those longboard skateboards down Park Avenue, going down 50, 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, the rush gave them something to be proud about.
Yeah,
that they could do
broke
something.
My wrist.
They could do something other kids couldn't do. Look up to me for that, and yet it would somewhat fill a hole. Things like that, But typically, it ends up being. They get introduced to weed, and then there's drinking. Most of the kids seem to get through it as they get to college, and then they start, thinking about work, and they got a test to go to college, so they kind of tone it. They get through college, they don't die, they have jobs, they realize they got to support themselves. It's similar to what you went through, but he struggled with that identity part. Until he connected with his best friend in LA and realized all these guys are like me. They're all outliers, and we all connected. And he found that he was the right place at the right time for the birth of social media, when it was going ballistic.
Right.
And he resonated with people, and he was very open about mental health and looking out for everybody else. He's very empathetic. And that resonated with a lot of kids, and he got a lot of followers because
that what triggered most of the stuff going viral or whatever.
Yes, because they liked him being vulnerable and talking about the things they were going through, and it's interesting because these kids don't have a platform, or I feel they don't have the skill set or the safety, maybe the lack of. They're fearful to talk to anybody else. Like their parents, they're not going to talk to
You can't show weakness.
No,
right?
or you can't disappoint them.
Yeah.
Like your dad's giving you tickets to go around the world. And I'm sure you didn't want to disappoint him. Like, oh man, now I'm really fucked up.
Yeah,
I'm in a bad spot. And it's I've done all these things for you, and he's gonna be disappointed. They're gonna hurt. They're gonna cry. They're gonna be scared because they're fearful that I'm hurting myself, and they need to talk. And we all need to talk and be vulnerable. Yeah. And it led to him gaining fame. And he never really cared about the fame. Which is...
This came naturally for him doing what he
doing.
Did naturally?
He didn't care about that he was getting followers or that he was becoming famous, that people would want... I mean, I'll give you an example. We're coming back from Mexico. We were flying out of Puerto Vallarta. He was probably 17. And his girlfriend was with us. They were there for Thanksgiving. And they're trailing behind us, and we're walking to where we're going to sit to wait for the plane in the airport. And I go, where's Coop and Sap? And Treva and I look at, they're just right behind us. And we look back, and they're back there about 50 feet. And there's these little Mexican gals going, take a picture of this. And I go, how the hell they know him in Mexico? And they're doing selfies, and he goes, dude, he goes, hey, that's cool. I don't mind doing that. And he goes, but he could care less about the fame. He didn't want to disappoint them. Sure, I'll take a picture with you, But it wasn't about ooh, I'm going to brag about that. He never posted it. They did. So it was about his willingness to be open about his struggles. And that resonated with a lot of people. And we find this out later on after he passed, all the things that he did and how important they were to people. And so the things that he got started with and left us with, kind of led us a bunch of different directions, and this is one of them. One of his, he had 3 things that he left for us to do, which was things that he was doing. The third one, which I thought would be so far-reaching, was when you've got recovery help, you're an adult. You're going to choose to get recovery. You made a choice. Like, my life's getting really bad. You get an intervention with your family, and then you decide, like, okay, I'm going to get some help, or like, I'm not going to get some help. Like, fuck off.
Free will.
Right, but it's up to you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work unless you choose to do so.
That's right.
Nobody can force you, because you can go there and say, okay, I'm going to go, and I'm just biding my time. Right? You've seen people do that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And they
I
bail
love
out.
that line. We care, but we don't give a shit.
Yeah. But I mean, but if you really care, you're gonna like you're really fit for your age. You've chosen to watch your diet, work out,
Right.
take care of yourself. You can see the difference in what you've chosen to do. When you're under 18, you have the ability as a parent to do something about this, because you can make them go somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
We had Cooper picked up in the middle of the night. We thought that his partying was getting too out of control. The drug use was getting out of control. The drinking and drug use. And it was like weed, alcohol, and then Xanax, as we found out. He liked Xanax. He liked it.
That's a nasty thing to detox from.
I'm just saying,
Xanax
whatever
will
it
kick
is,
your
some
ass.
people love alcohol.
The benzodiazepines.
And some people
Benzos.
love weed. I know guys that just love weed. Like Snoop Dogg's a guy that loves weed. Cheech and Chong, those guys.
Well, if they can pull it off.
But we had him picked up. It took him to a wilderness program in Utah. And he spent a little over 90 days there, and he loved it. He got detoxed. He
With
got
some challenges, and some different scenes.
physically fit. He went from about a skinny 5'5" kid, and over 90 days he came back about another 60 pounds heavier. Fit, 60.
Wow.
Heavier, and
muscle.
5'9". He grew. He happened to grow.
5'9".
He happened to grow over that summer. It was in the summer. He was eating.
Good for him.
They're working out. They're carrying I think it was a 60 to 70 pound pack, hiking 11 to 15 miles a day, camp to camp. That's all he did.
That's great.
So he loved it. And then he went to everybody recommended that he go to when you leave these camps, to a aftercare boarding school. So he finished his junior year.
Where was that?
There in Utah. Can't remember the exact name, but it was by. I have to look at it. It's by,
Still out there in that same environment.
Well, and it was in a city. It was like a town that had a small Utah town, and when he came home, we didn't learn until much later that it wasn't what they had told you was, Mom and Dad. There were drugs in there. All they cared about was money. There was, the girl counselors having sex with the guys. He goes, this wasn't what they told you what this was going to be. There were some good things about it, family therapy, things they worked with me, but there were some other things there that were like just out of control. And, he just said it was bullshit. He goes, I would love to, this was his third thing, I would love to, at some point in time, create a real aftercare recovery center that works and be involved with that. Because I've been through one that doesn't. And ultimately, we thought, well, I don't know if we'll ever get involved with that. To me, that's like a lot of money. It's a facility. That's a whole other world, right? But people like you have reached out and said, hey, we want to do something on behalf of your son. We have this, and maybe with your platform, maybe we can, help each other, and we can provide, if somebody really wants it and can't afford it, we can provide, recovery service.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, so here we are, and I don't know anything about recovery. I don't know how this business works. I do want you to explain.
You want to go down that?
Well, I'd like to know the process, meaning, we were awarded a scholarship from another group I mentioned to you down in San Juan. We had our first recipient of that scholarship get admitted, went through an admissions process, went there, spent over 30 days there, and came out, and so far, I think it's like week 2 out, his father has been in communication with me that it's going well. He's going to AA meetings. He's going to Bible studies. They're a Christian family. He's staying with the recovery so far. The people that he was with before, he's choosing not to be with them. He's choosing to like what you've done. This is what I'm being told, that he doesn't want to go back to that. And he's taking it day by day. And I know that this doesn't normally happen. A lot of times it takes more than one instance to get clean and stay with it. But, the dad said, I'm on a school teacher's salary. I could never afford this. He's very thankful, grateful. And, I'm staying in contact, and I just wanted to see how this goes, because this is new to me. It's like, thank God this kid didn't die. I think his thing was Coke. Mm-hmm. And, today, it's a 70% chance that's got a lethal dose of fentanyl. It's a matter of when that kid's going to die.
There's some crazy stuff out there, isn't there?
Yeah, and it's like that kid was going to die. The chances are he's going to die. It's a different environment than when you were doing this. Yeah. So he's made it so far, and, it's one day at a time for the rest of his life,
Yeah. You never know.
You never know.
You never know.
So you just hope and pray, and I'm trying to give him messages of encouragement, and we're praying for you. And I think about him a lot, and I do keep him in my prayers, and I pray every morning. Hmm. But when someone gets referred to LightHouse, take me through the process. What happens? Like, okay, hi, I'm Harold, and I'm calling here. I've got an addiction problem, whatever, or alcohol, whatever. What happens?
Yeah, I want to touch on something way back when. Before I'll tell you, on the admissions, my parents got divorced. That was a precipitating event, is a term that's used in the clinical side of things. But I think that was a big thing for me to trigger all this stuff. So if somebody's trying to, willing to get sober, or one of their significant others thinks they're ready to get sober, they typically reach out. And some of the it's more logical to go to your insurance company first and see the
if they're
places,
going to pay for it.
Yes, that are in network, but typically the Google search, right? And we'll take a call. Say we receive the call you're talking about. First we'll see who it is. We'll see if they're willing. That's a big thing. And then ability to pay is sort of, the steps. Where are you? Are you appropriate? There's different, modality or issues. Like eating disorder is a pretty heavy thing. If a girl has an eating disorder, it really wouldn't be appropriate, because that's a whole nother ball game.
Medically it would be.
Yeah, medically you got to watch them, because they're hide food and they can die. They're throwing up. It's tough. Adolescent, if you're, if physically you need you're on a wheelchair, you're too old. There's all those little filters that you'll go through, and if there's the ability to pay, the willingness. And if we have, an open capacity,
availability,
bed space, then we'll go through. There's an assessment that we'll do, and that's sort of the start. And then, typically there's just a window of opportunity with a guy who's willing. Now on the scholarship side, we used to have 10% of our population was a scholarship. So if we had 70 people, 7 would be scholarships, and that changed with COVID.
Right.
It changed with all this crazy stuff. But I always found that there's just not only is totally beneficial for the person that doesn't have the ability to pay, there's a financial benefit, because if they're grateful, they're participating. A willing participant in the groups here is really valuable. The whole energy of a rehab facility is based on the participation and the hope that's generated, through the people. We have staff, and we it's like a 2-to-1 staff ratio. But if the people here, the clients are buying it, then it's a much better environment. And then they'll move, we have a big alumni program. Does that answer your question
Yes.
on what it takes at the beginning?
So you're doing an admissions, you're doing an assessment, and then you admit them. So what happens next? Is there a detox?
Yeah. So
what are the steps coming in, and how long are you in?
Well, it depends what your drug of choice is. Now, the heroin detox is typically longer than alcohol. The benzo, like the Xanax, can be even longer. And it becomes a medical, we have a medical director, and all the other rehabs are required through the Department of Healthcare Services to have a medical director, and they'll do the medical assessment. So the first person who answers the phone is not a licensed person. They come in here, we have a nurse that will do an assessment, and then you get our medical director will dictate the length of the detox depending upon their what they test for.
Right.
They'll do a test and we'll see what's going on, right?
Right.
And then this is where it's sort of, you get it at the hands of your insurance company. Whoever the payer is, they will dictate the length of stay based on medical necessity. And
Do they have their own columns or their
yes. Well, here's
rules
a conundrum. Some of the insurance companies would have one sort of documentation, medical necessity, and then the Department of Healthcare Services would have another. And right now, the state of California is using this thing called ASAM, which is they're requiring all the insurance companies to have the same, requirements, because some of them would say, hey, you've got to have a doctor see him every day. Well, the financial, implications, they don't want to pay for it through their rates, but they can tell you this stuff. So sometimes there are these different messages. Like right now, the Department of California has a different ASAM level than United's requirement. And I could get into the weeds with that. I was just at this conference, and they're, trying to get, all these bureaucracies to talk to each other. We're in network with Kaiser. Now, Kaiser has its own rules, and we're in network with the Veterans Administration. They have their own rules. So we have to, as a company, understand the idiosyncrasies of each payer.
Right.
And very few are cash these days. There was a period of time when people would take out seconds on their house, and we're here in Anaheim. We're this sort of the Chevy. There's still the spots, on the beach in Malibu.
Yes.
They're charging $70,000 a month or
70?
some crazy.
It's more like
ass.
100 plus.
Okay, there you go. Whatever
It's the spa, Malibu.
And
the boo.
The joke is, it's a $100,000 big book. I mean, you could, go to a meeting in the morning, work, and then go to a meeting at night, and that's a great recipe if somebody already. But typically, you need to go and get out of your environment.
Right.
So
you got to learn different skill sets. This coping mechanisms.
The billing and the bureaucracy. Like we have to report the COVID stuff. They've put treatment centers in the same bucket as hospitals. So we have to do this reporting to Orange County Board of Health for COVID, and I'm against it.
It's not applicable.
Yeah, but there's this whole control thing. So anyway, a lot of bureaucracy with running this business.
And do you find that you're struggling with the insurance companies over money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a thing they can do a clawback, which is they can pay you for last year, and then they can come back and say, well, you really didn't do it. We're going to do an audit. We're going to take all the money back. You owe us this money. We've had a lot of these ongoing disputes, and you have to have a legal team. We have a legal issue with Cigna that was over. We have a legal issue going with Blue Cross right now. There's a legal issue with TriWest.
And it just costs more money to operate.
It does. There's a burden in California. Well, there's a burden which are the insurance companies alone.
Right. So you have someone that gets through the admissions process and the assessment. They go through detox, and then they start getting weaned off of whatever they've been taking. And then what happens from that point on?
Well, there's different levels of care. So what they'll do is they'll say,
Let's say they're going to stay here in a bed for what, a month?
well, they can stay for a month depending upon their level of care. So what happens is there's a thing called residential treatment, which is after detox, and they're supposed, they'll put you in, but they're trying to not pay for that because it's expensive. It's a bed. The next level is called partial hospitalization, which is where there'd be an outpatient.
Outpatient, yeah.
Well, they'll stay somewhere else. Typically, a lot of places have a sober living house, and then they go to a commercial place where they'll do treatment 6 hours a day.
Like therapy and meetings and
Yeah, they'll do therapy 6 hours a day.
medical assessments and
Yeah, they'll typically the medications are set. They'll be on whatever meds they're prescribed, and then the next one is intensive outpatient, which is 3 hours a day. 3 hours a day, and then they only say like 3 or 4 days a week. So that's sort of the step down process. And typically they'll be, in a sober living environment that's not licensed, but they'll go to a commercial building that is.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the way it works.
Where do you see a change made for those that really want to get clean and change their life? Is it in the group discussions? Is it one-on-one? How does that work out?
I think it's the interaction with the other new people at in the groups. It's the groups where somebody is talking, just like you and me. All of a sudden, they get a little more open. They get a little more vulnerable. They'll talk about something that they really don't or didn't want to, and then they'll feel a release, and then they get used to that release. There's a buzz. One alcoholic talking to another is sort of how the AA started, but it's the same thing. One person talking to another, I'm going in the personal side. You get that feeling of release, almost the same. It's not the same as getting drunk, but there's the same type of release. There's a dopamine.
I was going to say, it must be a dopamine release when you're getting that emotional piece of being to be open with somebody else that you connect with.
Yeah, and someone else says, I did fentanyl the other day and it made me, do this. And the other guy's, well, I did the same thing and maybe you shouldn't try that because you ended up in jail, or you're OD'd. And then the guy goes, well, maybe I won't do that today. I'll wait till tomorrow. And, and then those type of conversations build into something. I think that's how it works. And it's alcohol or whatever the one-on-one relating to another. So that's the magic of meetings throughout the world.
Our experience with Cooper and when he was in the wilderness, there were 2 times that we were out there that we actually spent time with him in the wilderness. One was midway through for an afternoon. The second time, it was an afternoon and an overnight when he was leaving. And they were both great experiences, but he had a therapist there that was phenomenal. And then we did a family. That's where he did his individual and his group.
Family group.
This guy was incredible. And we were always close with our kids, but Coop really opened up. And he coined this keyword that he had when he needed to really talk. He would say, hey, Dad, we'd be talking about something, and he goes, I need to get real with you about this.
He'd say, get real?
Get real. That was the key word. I need to get real. And he would talk about that with Parker and Treva. And I remember him saying that with his girlfriend as well and his friends. It's like, I need to get real. And then he would Matt, I need you to listen to what I have to say. This is important to me. And I want to talk to you about how I'm feeling. And and then we were in the aftercare in the boarding school. I thought these were really productive family weekend therapy sessions. Mm-hmm. There'd be mom and dad or single parent, let's say there was 20 kids in a group, and they'd all be sitting around this big room, and then it'd be our turn with us 3, sitting in front of us in the middle of it and talking about what we need to talk about. And it got you're vulnerable in front of everybody else. It just pulled down the shades, the curtains.
The shadows, yeah.
And you got open, and it worked really well. We continued that. It became part of our, family routine and brought us all closer together with him and closer together in just our individual relationships. me with my wife, me with my daughter, conversely. I think those were invaluable. What resonated with me is what you said. When you have somebody that may be a recipient of a scholarship and they're in your program and they're interacting in the groups, they typically would be more grateful because like they wouldn't be here without without a scholarship being offered. They might not have been able to afford it. They may not have insurance. Their insurance may say no. And it seems like their gratefulness or enthusiasm is helpful to the others in the group. And then they're going to go and be advocates for you.
Oh, yeah. Like there's a lady that works for us now that a scholar. There's another one that worked here that were scholarships. There's others that have just come up and, the business has its fixed cost, right? Rent, food, and then, everything over the fixed cost sort of falls. But if you have open beds like a hotel or airplane, they're open and the incremental cost isn't. So I've always been a strong app, but you have to be careful. And then if they're ungrateful, we'll see you later.
Right.
But the benefits are huge. And in the groups, like we were saying, if Cooper, he probably had another kid his age, I'm hoping, or somebody that he could go, hey, I need to get real. And that's the value right there. And then you can have some type of conversation that, it's like you're doing lines in the middle of the night. I need to get real with you, But you don't remember what you talked about all night long. But when you're sober, you wake up and your eyes are clear and you can show up at work and all of a sudden there's all this magic that can happen.
Well, you start seeing the results of sobriety and actually making good choices, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's making good. It's more like not making bad choices. Yeah. If you're dodging, the police activity, spending all your money, waking
killing
up
yourself,
broke, killing yourself.
Yeah. Crushing your health.
Yeah. All the things you dodge by not being wasted. That was sort of the trigger, and that's the thing here. If we can, get people to believe that there's a way to, improve their life without going back, and it's just hard. There's that whole stigma of being sober and can you not hold your booze? And I don't know if you were like this. I didn't trust somebody who didn't drink way back when, right?
Yeah, there was a little bit of that.
But that's sort of gone.
Yeah, it is gone because we went through an era of being very healthy. I mean, I think I'm a lot older than you, but we grew up through a couple of 2 or 3 decades where it was the focus was physical health, no smoking. Nobody smoked cigarettes.
Yeah.
And it was about working out, sports,
playing volleyball,
playing tennis,
fit,
just being fit, right? Now the younger generations, I would say the millennials, grew up with smoking. Smoking became cool again.
Or the vapes.
Then it became the vapes.
Thing.
And now that seems to be dying off. We're starting to see the straddling of the millennial to the Gen Z going back to being more fit. They're doing yoga, they're hiking, they're going to the gym. They realize, I make more money as a brand advertiser, as a model, as an aspiring actress, as a performer, a musical performer, if I look fit and cut, if I look good.
Yeah.
That resonates with the fans. They like that. I saw the transformation in Adam Levine from Maroon 5. Uh-huh. They cut his hair. He got ripped, started performing without a guitar, with a tank top, then without a shirt, and he skyrocketed to a big solo career. I mean, he's a stud. He looks great. And that's what happens. I mean, and he's healthy, So I think it's also kind of, you went through sobriety, and then you ended up starting a rehab center. And how long was it from sobriety to starting the rehab center, and why did you start a rehab center?
Well, I was about 15 years sober, and I was in a technology startup that didn't work out.
Okay.
And that's a whole nother story. And this center, I had never really wanted to be in the rehab business. In AA, there's this whole thing about the 12-step. You give it away to keep it. You do it for fun and for free. And I had known a couple people that had started rehabs that weren't. I didn't trust. I didn't like it.
You think because they were just about money?
Just about the money.
Money, yeah.
And that's sort of it's not a good way for me personally to think about it, because you're being a judge. And the guy actually did a lot of good work, and they saved a lot of people, but he wasn't my kind of guy. And what happened was my dad and another business partner were able to set up contracts with the state of California through the prison system.
That's right. That's what it was.
And that's how it all started. And
so you were doing rehab for prisoners.
Yeah, funded through the state.
So that's kind of a really interesting, cool, like secure niche.
Yeah, it was a niche. He thought, the state's paying, it will never go away. We built up this big business.
There's always going to be prisoners. And we're throwing away a lot of people on drugs.
Yeah, and most of them they're very willing coming out of prison. And we got these buildings that we're in today, and they have conditional use permits that you could, put prisoners in, which are not easy to get in the city. And this was a really tough part of Anaheim, but we cleaned it all up. We got the grass. We really, Anaheim loves us. And
it's a really nice facility here.
Yeah.
I came down the street. It gets a little sketchy.
It was so rough. And this used to be, there were dealers all through here. I mean, anyway, we've sort of cleaned it all up. And what happened was, when Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor, huge budget crisis, he cut all the funding. And so we had a huge reorg. We had 12 buildings throughout the state of 12 campuses, Stockton, LA, San Diego, Anaheim, and we had to shut everything down. We still have a San Diego facility that is, it's called a community transition center. And that's a whole nother model, but we pick up everybody that is released that has a San Diego County address from any state prison. And they can stay there for a period of time. And we have a 100-bed facility on Rosecrans down there. And it's a different model. But we do a lot of good work, and we help. So this place, in Anaheim, we converted into, we called it a private pay versus public pay. Like down there, the public is the payer. Here, it's the Kaiser, Blue Cross,
or cash, or whatever,
or cash.
Yeah.
And like You're My Kid would be appropriate for here. And it's not on the beach like we said,
right,
but it's the right thing. You need to level down a little bit.
Yes.
You
need to get out of your element.
Yes.
No matter what it is.
Yeah, and you need to, there's a joke, from park bench to park place.
Right.
You need to get in the same environment, talking to the same people. So this, it was just funny. It's like my higher power put me in this place. I didn't really want to do it, but having the sobriety, the ability, to do the real estate side, to do the business side, the billing side. There's a lot of components to running it that have it just sort of added up. It's curious, isn't it?
So it's worked out.
It's worked out. Now it's sort of tricky. We've got our challenges, the payers, all the costs have gone up for employees. The payers have not increased.
No. Insurance is such a challenging world to deal with.
And then
nobody wants to pay.
And then California just makes it. We got sued. There is this thing called a Private Attorney General's Act, a PAGA lawsuit, which is a total scam against this businesses in California, where the state is using private attorneys to find people to sue, and they create a class action lawsuit. They can look back for 5 years for wage an hour if you pay somebody $1 instead of $2, and they just blow it up, and the attorneys get like 40% of the pie. We've got a huge settlement that we got to pay in the next month, and it's just. So I have resentments against the state running a business.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, you're. What's the capacity here at this facility? How many beds?
We have about 130 capacity. We've got about 105. Well, we have there's
How many units
there's
on this campus?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 9.
Did you
We have 2
accumulate
bedrooms.
parcels?
Over time? Yeah, we had these 3 buildings, and then just when it would become available, we would just acquire it or we rent it.
And they're originally single-family homes?
Fourplex.
Fourplex.
This is a fourplex right here.
And then another fourplex.
Yeah.
That's great.
So it's just this campus, and you have to do it. You have to get the fire code allows a certain amount, but there's 45 detox beds, so we can do a lot of detox. There's some funding through Medi-Cal that's coming down the pike. We might be able to accept those. They used to pay just pennies, and now they're paying a little better.
Wow.
So it's a moving target. You have to just be involved with the state. There's a conference was it Tuesday, where we had the Department of Healthcare Service talking and the guy from ASAM talking and just paying attention to the changing environment of reimbursement. It's sort of a tricky thing.
I don't know how you heard about that. Another group had offered a scholarship at their facility in Cooper's name. But tell me how you heard that, and then how
I read your emails that you send out.
Okay.
I'm on your email list.
Okay, so I did send like an update on. I think it was towards the end of the year.
Yeah,
part of the year.
Yeah, so it's good stuff. I read those.
God,
Harold.
somebody actually reads.
Yeah, I know. Not everyone just deletes them right off the bat.
One person reads my email, so you saw that.
Yeah, and I, we are neighbors, and I wasn't close to your son, but I'm happy to support that, and we have another scholarship right now with the Anaheim Police Department that they can bring somebody, and we've always got an open bed, and I just think it's a worthy thing.
Peter, what we believe in is because of the landscape of fentanyl, being introduced. Kids are taking things that they think is one thing, and then it has fentanyl in it, and they're not buying or getting, like, I want to go get some fentanyl. They're going, I'm going to get a Xanax or a Percocet or an Adderall pill or whatever, and then they're getting poisoned, they're dying. And so these kids that are what's in the hundreds of thousands every year, they don't need to die. I mean, that's the part that really hurts me, it hurts my family, the people that were close to Cooper, is that he didn't purposely take something and had a lack of judgment that, I can handle this if it has fentanyl. That's not what he was bargaining for. And that's what he got, and he died from it, and he didn't have to. So you wonder, God, if he just had one more day, could it have been enough to change, your step? A lot of people don't know this. He was on his way to a Bible study. So it's so just kind of ironic. He was on his way to a Bible study. He stopped to get a Xanax from somebody that he trusted, and it was fentanyl. He never made it to the Bible study. He never made it out of the parking lot of the shopping mall that he went to the guy who was in there, met him, got it, heading out to get an Uber, and died in the parking lot. Sat down and it was too late. He had Narcan on him too. But you can't administer Narcan to yourself. I found out this happened so quickly that they always say don't use alone if you're going to use, because this is what happens. So when someone like you, we're so grateful and thankful that you're offering a scholarship in Coop's name. Someone comes through here and they get another day, that means a lot to me, because they get another chance that Coop didn't get.
Yeah,
I think that's what he wants us to do by the education, the awareness, the sharing of our stories, for you being open to share about, it sounded like fun in the 80s, partying, this and that, but you got to a point where
it drops, yeah.
You didn't want to live, but you're here, and you're giving people a chance to have another chance. And today, it's a lot different. A lot of people are not getting those chances, and they're just dying. And so I just want to say thank you. I'm very, very grateful. And I hope that, that the applicants that come in here are grateful and thankful and embrace it and get another chance and not just trying to pass the buck. But everybody's got their own path, right?
They do.
And that's up to God to figure out. It's in His hands what's going to happen. All we can do is do what we can do, right?
Yeah, you put the tools at their feet and hope they pick them up.
We're thankful that you're offering a scholarship here in the name of Coop. Tell us what that looks like.
All right. So if we find either a man or a woman that's over 18 that is, in need of help, is willing and is using, we can handle, most anything they're using. We'll give them a 30-day scholarship where they can stay and get treatment, detox, and residential treatment. And all it will take is a phone call to my admissions team or to me, and we'll get them in. It's typically we've got a bed. We've got a lot of capacity, and it's a high priority, and we'll take them in right away.
I contacted you about a week ago. There is someone that has reached out to me about someone close to them that's struggling, and they're serious about. And it's a serious situation. And I called you about it, and I talked to them and said, okay, well, your person has to want to do this, but it's available. Yeah. They need help, and was like, well, the concern is his parents have already done it for him a couple times. They don't know if they'll do it again. They don't know if they have the money to do it. And so it's completely confidential. No one's going to know. I'm not going to say anything. But when he's ready, let me know. Has to want to do it.
Yeah, that willingness is key. It's not a locked facility. And it's just, without willingness, they're going to go use again.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm very thankful and grateful that you're doing this, and I know Coop would be, and it's part of what he's leading us to do. So thanks, Pete. And thanks for the time to get to know you better as well.
That's great, yeah. That story is sort of confidential, but who knows? I think it's good to put out there. It really is.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And for more information, please follow us at the Coop's Advice Foundation.org.